Amal and George Clooney, through the Clooney Foundation for Justice, have now filed a lawsuit against the Archewell Foundation, the charitable entity operated by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. This was not a warning letter. Not a request for mediation. This was litigation. And the allegations are unambiguous: false endorsement, implied affiliation, unfair competition, and donor diversion. Translated from legal language, the accusation is straightforward. You leveraged our name, our standing, and our credibility to raise funds. This is not celebrity gossip. This is formal documentation with legal consequences. Lawsuits of this nature are not initiated unless evidence is already compiled, organized, and documented. No legal team led by someone with Amal Clooney's credentials enters federal court on sentiment alone. They arrive with records. And the moment this filing became public, a long-held illusion fractured, the notion that Hollywood philanthropy operates as a cooperative circle of shared goodwill. In reality, behind red carpet galas and curated social media posts, this has always been competitive terrain. And now, that competition has been formalized on the record. To understand how this unfolded, we have to begin at the beginning. Hollywood philanthropy functions on perception, not outcomes, not measurable impact. Perception: who you appear beside, whose aircraft you travel on, whose branding appears adjacent to yours, even in the absence of any signed agreement. That is the system Archewell entered the moment Harry and Meghan relocated to California. They did not arrive discreetly. They arrived carrying royal association, media gravity, inherited legacy, and elite access. For a time, it worked. They were photographed alongside the Clooneys. They stayed at Clooney Properties. George Clooney publicly defended Meghan, drawing comparisons to Princess Diana. That comparison alone carried immense influence. When George Clooney speaks, donors pay attention. And when Amal Clooney is present, legitimacy is assumed. This is where the legal issue begins. In the philanthropic world, assumption functions as currency. Partnerships do not need to be explicitly declared if the public already believes they exist. A press release does not need to state a falsehood outright. It simply needs to imply alignment, a logo placed nearby, a carefully chosen phrase, a strategically dropped name. That is not accidental. That is design. And according to this lawsuit, Archewell understood precisely how that mechanism works. Because when donors believe two powerful organizations are aligned, contributions increase and scrutiny decreases. The first warning signs did not appear in headlines. They surfaced in correspondence. By 2022, donors attending Archewell-related events began asking a recurring question: how exactly were Archewell and the Clooney Foundation for Justice collaborating? The answer was simple. They were not. No partnership agreement existed. No joint initiatives had been authorized. No collaborative campaigns were underway. Yet Archewell materials circulated in ways that strongly suggested otherwise. Clooney Foundation initiatives were referenced casually. At one fundraising event, Archewell distributed materials that cited Clooney Foundation work as if it were shared territory. Donors assumed collaboration, because few believe a foundation would imply such a relationship without permission. That assumption, according to the lawsuit, is exactly what Archewell exploited. By 2023, archived versions of Archewell's website listed the Clooney Foundation for Justice as a like-minded organization in global justice efforts. No consent. No approval. No disclaimer clarifying the absence of partnership. Just proximity, strategically deployed. Within Clooney Foundation circles, tolerance shifted to concern. Because this was no longer about branding confusion. It was about reputational contamination. At this point, clarity is essential. The Clooney Foundation for Justice did not file this lawsuit for publicity. It was filed to terminate conduct. The language of the complaint is not emotional. It is precise, technical, and deeply consequential. False endorsement under the Lanham Act. Unfair competition. Marketplace deception. This is not tabloid litigation. This is corporate-level legal action. The filing argues that Archewell did not merely benefit from confusion, it engineered it. Through visual association, linguistic mirroring, and calculated silence, donors were led to believe they were contributing to a unified justice initiative, and this is the turning point. The Clooney Foundation did not issue a cease and desist. It did not request quiet corrections. It did not seek informal resolution. It sued. Because by the time the matter reached Amal Clooney's desk, the damage was no longer reversible through edits or apologies. It had become demonstrable harm. Emails, metadata, donor affidavits, trademark records. This lawsuit is not speculative. It is targeted. And when an organization led by one of the world's most respected human rights attorneys chooses public litigation, it is because continued silence poses greater risk than exposure. Let us state the reality plainly. This lawsuit exists because money moved. High net worth donors, technology executives, entertainment financiers, and corporate sponsors redirected funds. Why? Because they believed Archewell was operating in coordination with the Clooney Foundation for Justice, not adjacent to it, not inspired by it, but aligned with it. One donor affidavit outlines the issue directly. A 7-figure pledge was redirected after attending an event where Archewell banners were positioned alongside Clooney Foundation branding, visually implying endorsement. Another donor received solicitation materials referencing aligned justice leadership language, reasonably interpreted as invoking George and Amal, Clooney's authority, and that is the foundation of this case. By the time the Clooney Foundation for Justice clarified matters privately, the funds had already moved. Forensic accounting referenced in the filing documents a 15% decline in CFJ pledges, directly aligned with periods of overlapping campaigns and donor outreach. This is precisely why the claim is not emotional. It is financial. False endorsement under the Lanham Act is not concerned with wounded pride. It addresses marketplace deception. And within this marketplace, credibility is the commodity. Archewell did not need to surpass the Clooney Foundation. It only needed to remain close enough to benefit from reflected trust. And according to the court filings, that is exactly what occurred. Hollywood does not ostracize publicly. It retreats quietly. Invitations stop arriving. Mentions disappear. Calls go unanswered. And once this lawsuit became public, the distancing that had circulated in private conversations for years suddenly aligned into a visible pattern. The Sussexes were not facing litigation alone. They were confronting social exclusion. Their absence from the Albee Awards, the Clooney Foundation's flagship event honoring substantive justice work, did not go unnoticed. That omission was not incidental. It was intentional. George Clooney, once openly defensive of Meghan Markle, had already altered his position years earlier. By 2023, his now widely cited, "I don't know her" remark signaled a definitive rupture. Behind closed doors, influential donors began shifting their inquiries. Not about missions or outcomes, but about credibility. And in this space, credibility is decisive. Major donors do not attach themselves to volatility. They seek predictability, discretion, and institutional clarity. This lawsuit introduced uncertainty into Archewell's brand, the most damaging development possible in a donor-driven environment. The Clooneys, meanwhile, adjusted accordingly. They reinforced institutional relationships. They appeared at legacy philanthropic forums. They aligned upward rather than outward. This was not an emotional calculation. It was a strategic one. Hollywood made its determination quietly, as it always does. The message embedded in this lawsuit is unambiguous. Institutional credibility cannot be borrowed without consent. Lines cannot be blurred when financial solicitation is involved. Proximity cannot be leveraged to obscure operational ambiguity. Donors are watching this case closely. Because if implied endorsement can redirect millions without scrutiny, then trust itself becomes destabilized. That is why this matter extends well beyond Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. It forces a broader reckoning. How many charitable entities are marketing alignment rather than outcomes? How often does "inspired by" drift into "replicated from"? How many causes are diluted by branding over substance? This lawsuit does not simply challenge Archewell. It unsettles an entire system that depends on ambiguity to function. There is a principle attorneys understand better than anyone. Documentation retains what people attempt to erase. This story began with borrowed access, borrowed proximity, borrowed legitimacy. It did not end there. Because borrowed authority, when left unchecked, eventually demands repayment. Sometimes that cost is financial. Sometimes reputational. And sometimes it is exacted in a courtroom, where discretion no longer shields conduct. The Clooney Foundation for Justice did not respond emotionally. It responded institutionally. It raised standards. And when those standards were breached, it acted with records, procedure, and consequence. As 2026 progresses, discovery now looms. Communications will be examined. Boardroom deliberations will be scrutinized. Decisions once framed as branding choices may be reassessed as intent. Settlements may be proposed. Statements may be drafted.